Okay, the recording is on, so I'm going to pass it over to Megan Whitby to welcome you all to today's call.
Thanks, Gina, and thank you all for being with us today. I know you're all very busy and preparing for what's to come, just as we are here. We appreciated your time last week, and I hope we were able to answer a lot of your questions about policy and what's to come as you transition into becoming dual licensees. Today is really focused on how to make that happen in the system. So Gina and Megan have a great presentation for you. I think many of you are very used to our marijuana licensing management system now. You've been in there to submit dispensary agent applications and update forms, some applications. So you're going to be very familiar with the system. Nothing's going to be too brand new. You will see some new functionality about how to link facility agents now, since that is a new feature. But we hope that you're very comfortable with the system now, and this should be as smooth of a transition as possible. But please let us know any questions you have throughout the presentation, and I will hand it back over to Gina.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. Okay, a couple things before we get started. I do want to do some introductions as usual. So we do have Tom and Megan, who you know pretty well. Tom is not going to be joining us this morning, but we do have Megan here to support with questions that come up throughout the presentation and again at the end. And then at the bottom of the slide, you'll see myself, Gina. We have Megan Wagner, who you had trainings with plenty of times if you've attended any of these other POBM trainings. And then we also have Dan Ciathone, who is also part of our training team, but he's going to be the one actually doing the training today. So Megan is here on the call with us, but you're going to be hearing mostly from myself and Dan as we move into the content. With that, a little bit about what to expect from today's session. I know Megan did a good job of kind of letting you know why we're here. I want to give you an agenda. So we're going to talk about what's new and changing with the features that are going to be coming live with this new application process. We'll give you an overview of what that process should look like. And then Dan is going to go through several of the demos, just so whenever we do go live, you have the experience of seeing it live already, and then also you'll have this recording so you can go back through and watch it should you need to do so. We'll end with some next steps and then Q&A. As we usually do, we'll pause for Q&A throughout, but we will leave time at the end. And I just want to reiterate that today's session is strictly around the application process. I know that there's been a lot of conversations and questions around the rules, and there's a lot of activity happening in the space, but we just want to make sure we set you up for success with the functionality of the system. Some of those things do relate to rules. If there is time at the end for anything else that you may have questions around, by all means, please ask. But we want to keep your questions related to the process that we're covering today. Also, a few other housekeeping items. Remember to keep your lines muted. And you can have video on or off, but if you find that there's some bandwidth issues, then we recommend turning video off, as that's less strain on the system. So those are a few things. And then as usual, you can put any questions you have in the chat. And when we get to a breaking point, we will pause and answer any questions that you have in the chat, and then we'll continue on. So with that, I'm going to start with what's new and changing. So we have divided this new content into two phases for adult use of marijuana. The first phase is what's coming January 19th. And so the things that you can expect are the initial establishment application. So this application is only available for new establishments in open counties. Not every county is eligible to apply for a new establishment right now, but the ones that are, that application will be available. The ATO application, and then also the dual conversion application. So the dual conversion is for existing dispensaries that want to convert to a dual. We're going to cover some language and answer any questions you have around this. We know that a lot of you are pretty familiar with these terms already, just through the process, but everybody probably has a different level of understanding. So we'll make sure we cover any questions you have. We'll also be launching the certificates that generate after you've applied for an establishment or a dual. We'll go through the FA applications process. So the FA applications are a new application that are part of dual and establishment functionality. And those will be for new, lost, stolen, or change as well. How to access the FA cards, how to link and unlink. So this is also a new feature that Dan will be covering today. It's a little bit different than what you're used to. So we'll be covering exactly what that means. And then also the update application for a dispensary, dual, and establishment. These are all features and functionality that will be available on January 19th. There are some features and functionality that are coming in phase 2 because we need to divide up what was most important to be able to release now and what we can release later, just from a timing perspective to meet the January 19th date. So for phase 2, what you can expect is we will be then launching change applications for establishments and duals. So there are not change applications launching at this time, which is important to know. We'll also be doing modification change applications, the decertify update application, and then certificates that are appropriate for any of those above features. So that's what you can expect. Phase 2, we'll be announcing when phase 2 will be coming, but it will be soon after phase 1. Just stay tuned for the specific dates on when that will release. And so today we're going to cover a lot of what you see here, a high level of how to submit those applications and what to expect. All right, application process overview. So this slide, we're going to keep referring back to it because we think that it will help guide you through what the process looks like from start to finish. This is just an overview of, there's a lot of things that can happen simultaneously. So if you look at number 1 and 2, those are the only things that we're recommending happen in that particular order. They do not have to happen in that order. But we're going to recommend it, and I'll speak to that in just a second. Then 3, 4, 5, and 6 can happen simultaneously, and I'll talk about that as well. So what we're recommending for everyone is if you are choosing, again, all of this is optional, if you are choosing to convert to a dual facility or an establishment, you will need to complete an FA application. That is a facility agent application. Everybody needs to complete this, POBMs as well. So we encourage you to do that first. If you're a dual, you don't have to. We encourage you to, just makes it a little bit easier. If you're an establishment, you will have to complete that first because you cannot complete an establishment application without having an FA application already approved. So just keeps it simpler to say FA application first, then the dual or establishment application second. ADHS will review those applications, and if approved, it moves on to steps 3 through 6. So if you're doing an application for an FA, you're going to have a card issued. If you are applying for your facility, you'll have a certificate generated. Those would be what would happen next. Then you'll have access to the facility agent portal and the dual establishment or facility portal on the bottom. You'll notice that that top bar up here says access through the individual portal, and this bottom bar says access through the facility portal. These are the 2 different portals that have existed since we've launched the MLMS, but depending on which portal or what you're trying to do, you're going to go into a different portal. So anything that's from the FA application individual side is going to be done through the individual portal, and anything that needs to be done through the facility side will be done through the facility portal. We'll talk more about that as well. It's not overly complicated, just want to make sure you understand that there are 2 portals that you're going to be working out of. Once you have had everything approved, then the linking is necessary, and this again is the new feature. So if you're trying to link from the individual perspective from the FA, you can say, I am now approved and I want to link to a facility. Or if you're a facility and you're a POBM and you want to link to the FA, you can do that. Either way, either party can initiate a linking. That is important. Or you can just approve a request that you receive. Again, we'll talk more about that. And then finally, the final step is once the linkage has happened, then now FAs are able to view future facilities. So this whole process is what we're covering today at a high level, just to make sure you understand what to expect. I will pause for a moment before we get into the demo piece. Are there any questions? Okay. Doesn't sound like it, so I'm just going to keep on moving. As I mentioned, this is the process, so we're going to start with number 1. I'm going to turn it over to Dan to go through completing the FA application. Dan?
Great. Hey, thank you. So just before we go into the application side and the demo side, I just want to cover some terms that you may hear during the demo, or during the training, and this session, so we're all on the same page here. So as you know, there's a dispensary side, so we're familiar with that. But now we're introducing the establishment, and introducing the facility called a dual. So from the establishment side, we will quickly give you an overview of that. Is just adult use only. It's basically a retail site. And then on the dual side, that is basically 2 things: a medical and an adult use of marijuana side. So you're able to dispense to patients and caregivers, and also sell to adults. And the other terminology that we'll use in that gray box there on the bottom, card versus license. So we're going to use those interchangeably for an FA card or FA license, or a DA card, DA license. So we shouldn't want you to get confused there. But the next thing is the individual side, individual versus facility portals. Those, as Gina had mentioned before, are 2 separate portals that house 2 separate functionalities for 2 separate audiences. So the individual side, we were going to deal with patients and caregivers, and a lot of you may be familiar with that already, but then now we're introducing the FA side, and that's going to be included in the individual portal. So then the facility portal, we're well aware of all that stuff. POBMs, DAs, FAs, depending on the facility type. We'll go into there and do work there. DAs, FAs, we're familiar with the DAs, FAs. Based off of the facility type, those are your employees. The next thing that we wanted to lay out there was linking and unlinking, and Gina kind of covered this a little bit, and we'll get into more detail later on in the demo and during the training. But linking and unlinking is managing the associations between the facility and your facility agents. So that's kind of net new functionality that we'll definitely spend a lot of time covering, and hopefully you guys have questions that we can help answer. So I'm going to go ahead and go off camera because the bandwidth is a little crazy right now, and I will start to present as well. Okay. Let me find the right screen here. All right. Once my screen shows up, you'll notice that I'm at the individual portal, and this link will be available via the AZHS website. Just basically how you log into the facility now, it'll be on that page as well. For right now, we're going to be working in what we call the training environment. So this is a staging area. It's not production. So you'll see some screens that may not be the latest greatest, or like the things that you'll see in production. This is just for us to walk through, and we'll point out some of those items as we go, just because the timeline is so short that we want to make sure we cover everything. So I'm going to log in. And as this individual, let me preface this person. His name is Frankenstein. He does not have a card. He does not have any other card. He only has a username and login. And we just wanted to note as well that for your FAs, and when you're applying for an FA card, please use your username and login that you already have for your facility portal. What we've done is made it really simple for you. The logins for both sides, the facility side and the individual side, are this. You can use the same login to go into here. So all your cards are associated to you, so you don't have to worry about that stuff. So as Frankenstein, I'm a new user, so I don't have any cards. I don't have anything as of right now. So as the portal loads, as a new user who doesn't have anything or any cards, any individual cards, this is all I'm going to see. And this is the homepage, the marijuana portal program. So then we're going to go in here, click that marijuana tile. Okay. And then as that loads, as you can see, there's going to be supportive information up here, applications down here, and you'll see the new patient application. You'll see the minor patient application, all these applications for patient side and caregiver side. But what I'm really interested in for this is the facility agent application. So for all of us, even the POBMs, we'll have to come here and then select the new facility agent application to apply for that. Okay, so I'll click on that to open up the application, and it'll resemble a lot of what you'll see, what you have seen in the dispensary agent application. So just FYI that this agreements page, there's some items that are under construction still. So those upload components that we'll show you later in the application will be populated here, and then resources as well. So if you need to know a little bit more about fingerprints, we'll have that linked as well. So that will be more robust up here for the go live. Okay, and as I scroll down, I'll just have to click and agree to proceed. This pop-up will appear, and the verbiage will also be updated to reflect the FA application. So I'll click agree for now to go in there. And as that application loads, it'll be very similar, like I said before, to the DA application. So as Frankenstein, I'm able to enter my information. So quickly here, and then a date of birth. You just pick a date picker here. I mean, I don't obviously use that, born 1974, but we'll pretend he did. And he's a male. And then driver's license number. Arizona, it's pre-populated for the issuing state from a driver's license, because that is the only driver's license that will be accepted. So it pre-populates that for you. And I'll pick an issue date somewhere in the past. All right. So one thing I want to focus a little bit of our time on during this section is that fingerprint stuff. So you're back in the DA application, we were only able to submit the fingerprint verification form and cards. You had to mail that in, you had to drop it off, and there's 2 copies in the form. So now you're able to select this level 1 fingerprint clearance ID. And more information will be available on the agreements page and also the resources, and then linking this back to what that really entails. So we won't really cover what that card is. That's more of a program thing. So if I select that level 1 card, that will then, on the back end of this app, will require me to upload a digital copy of that clearance card ID on the uploads document page, and the fees change as well. And it's actually cheaper for us for you to apply for an FA card with a level 1 fingerprint ID card versus the old version of the fingerprint verification form. Okay, so I'll just leave that there as level 1. And then I go down to the residential address. So this is similar to what we talked about before. This is the residential address of this user. So I'm going to go in and enter some information for Frank. Okay, and then on the mailing address, this is very similar functionality to before. If I select that and indicating that my mailing address is different, the mailing address form fields will appear, and I will have to enter those, and those are required if I check that box. So if my mailing address is the same, I'll leave that there. This section is the digital attestation version. So it has pre-populated my name based off of the fields that I've entered up here. So Frankenstein, the attestation verbiage is here, but I have to opt in to do business electronically. If I do that, the digital signature form will appear here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. If I don't select that checkbox, just to note, when I go to proceed to the upload page, the attestation will be required, and I'll share that with you guys once I get there. So it says like it's successful, so that's good. I'll go in and say save and continue, and now we have the upload page. So I have to upload these upload components are going to be modified and updated based off of rule and statute. So some of these may be changed. They may not be as accurate as what we see in the training environment, like I mentioned before. So I'm going to go find my photo ID. And then as that loads, it takes a second, depending on the file size. But current digital photograph, I'm going to be Chevy Chase. All right. And then as you can see, this is an electronic copy of a completed and signed facility agent attestation. Since I already digitally signed it, this is not required. But if I click on this, if I did want to submit one, it's simple here because I can just click on that hyperlink and it'll open a form for me in the PDF form. I can download that and sign that and then upload it here. So it's all encompassed in the same page. So it's a lot easier that way. And then now, if you can see, electronic copy of the level 1 fingerprint clearance card ID is now required. So I have to upload my clearance card ID in order for that to be satisfied. So as that loads, I click done. All right, and if I mistakenly uploaded something wrong, similar functionality as before, I can remove it and then re-upload something else. So I'm gonna go ahead and click save and continue. All right, so this is a review page, and this is just a great place where if I was a FA and applying for one, I want to make sure all my information is correct because I don't want to deal with the RFIs that might come up about this. So if I see like, oh, my date of birth is wrong, I can go ahead and click on edit section. It'll take me back to that section and edit that as needed. And then now that all my information is correct, I can see that. Then I'm going to go ahead and submit and go to payment. Just to note, when we go into the payment portal here, it's not going to be the same fee or anything. This is just for training. So these will change. But I just want to make sure that we go through the whole process and submit the application with a payment. Okay. And as that freshens up, and then I can authorize that payment. This is very similar to any electronic payment that we have. And just to note that all these applications require credit card payment, since they're all digital now. So even with the facility side, especially with the facility side. So once the payment is confirmed, I can go back to the portal. Okay. And then now that I have that submitted, I want to just share with you, if you're not familiar with the individual portal, how to check my application status. So your FA can go in there, click on that marijuana tile, click on check application status. And now I can see my application tile says it's been submitted on this date, and it's being reviewed on the queue. Well, not quite reviewed yet, but it's in the queue to be reviewed by ADZ-EHS. Okay, I'm going to pause there real quick. Were there any questions on the application? I wasn't able to see the chat, but
So far, there's nothing in the chat. So if you guys have any questions at this point, feel free to throw them in there, or we'll just continue.
I have one question. The portion where you mentioned the driver's license, it kind of broke up there on the signal. Can you repeat that part real quick?
Yeah. So on the application, when you select driver's license as your ID and enter the number, it'll pre-populate and then not editable the next section where the issuing state comes from. So you don't have to fill that out. It'll just be Arizona.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. And any other questions before we proceed?
So if somebody has recently mailed in their hard copy fingerprint cards, they just choose the not fingerprint clearance level 1 option.
Correct. Yeah, you'll just use that that other option, that non-level 1, the form and card. If you submitted it before, just select that, and then ADZ-EHS will use what they have. I'm not sure on the timeline, but as if you know that you've submitted one recently or something, you might want to check. But
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, and we do have a couple of other questions that have come through regarding fingerprints specifically. So let's pause for just a second before you move on, Dan.
Sure.
The first question is, fingerprint cards are good for how long? Megan Whippy.
So you should be submitting new fingerprints for the FA card. Technically, the best time to do it is once the rules go into effect, which should be Friday.
Okay. Tasha asks, if you had not selected the level 1 clearance option, you wouldn't have been required to upload that component.
Correct.
That is correct. After we upload the ID clearance card, do we send it to ADHS still?
The fingerprint clearance card, if you actually have a level 1 fingerprint clearance card, no, that is you just are giving us the image of it.
Mhm.
If you do not have a level 1 fingerprint clearance card, you are still going to send us that little square piece of paper that has your fingerprints rolled on it. They are two completely separate things. A level 1 fingerprint clearance card is something that like fits in your wallet. It's like an ID card kind of, but it doesn't have a picture or anything. So they're two separate things.
Okay, great. Thanks, Megan. One last question. Cassidy asked, how much leniency will be allowed on digital signatures on the attestation? Those can sometimes be difficult to sign. So I would just say this, it's either you digitally sign or you don't. There's not necessarily a leniency. If you digitally sign it, then nobody expects that to look like a perfect signature. It's just showing that that's your acknowledgement. I'm not sure if that really fully answers your question, Cassidy, but you can always choose to not sign it if you want to do paper. And
I'll add to that, Gina. If you're worried, because in the past we may have questioned signatures on the attestations, every applicant is going into their own portal account, so there's less question there as to whether or not someone is signing that electronic attestation because they're in their actual own user portal account.
Great clarification. Thanks, Megan. Okay, we would still need fingerprints for an employee that just got approved for a DA card last week.
It's just important to remember that this is a new program, so the rules are going into effect now, and so, you know, the best course of action is to submit fingerprint cards.
Okay, I think that answers the next question as well from Mike. And we can again save time at the end if there's anything outstanding that you're concerned about how to move forward. And then it says, does the residence, Tasha asked, does the residence address have to match what is on the ID or license?
No, it does not.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the great questions, everyone. We're going to go ahead and move forward just to stay on time. But again, if you do have questions that come up, feel free to pop them in the chat.
Okay, sorry, I was turning it off mute. All right, so just to recap, we've just submitted the FA application, and now we're going to move ahead and pretend that AZHS approved our application because we're good human beings and, you know, whatever. So now I have an FA application that's been approved. A card has been issued for this person. And I'm going to go ahead and log in. This is a separate person from Frankenstein, so don't worry if his name has changed. This is just for show. All right, as we log in as Hawkeye, Hawkeye has applied for one previously. He has an agent card active. So now, as you see, under my programs, I have a facility agent tile now. So I'm going to click on this tile. And then what I want to do is give you an overview of all the functionality within the sitemap. And then we're going to focus really the majority of the time in facilities. And that's kind of where the meat of this part of the demo will be. But basically, you'll get a notifications section here in the home page and all that stuff. So this is similar to what we had before from the patient side. So if I click on my ID card tab here, it will display my ID card for my facility agent. So as you can tell, the layout has changed a little bit, and that was by design just to differentiate it from the DA cards. So they're easily identifiable as this is a facility agent card. The picture's larger, things like that. The barcode's down there. I can download that card to my local drive as well. And then if I click on card history, this is all, remember, we're in Hawkeye's individual portal. So Hawkeye is the one that owns the card. So he's the FA, he owns the FA card. He can see the card history, all this stuff. Previously, the DA side obviously doesn't own the card, so that that lives in the facility side. So if you go into applications, now Hawkeye is responsible to manage card changes. His name has changed, or residential things like that have changed. He can submit that card change himself via the portal. And then if he's lost the card somehow, the digital card, I don't know, or something has been compromised on his card, he sees weird things that are happening, Hawkeye can actually submit a lost or stolen card and report that and get issued a new card. Okay. And then moving forward, if he does do any of those applications, all those application statuses will appear as tiles here. And all approved applications will appear here. Okay. All right. So we move into the facilities stuff. So in the facility tab, this is where all the fun stuff happens. This is where you can link. This is where you can where Hawkeye can see what facilities he's associated with. Right now, when you originally click on it on a fresh facility agent card and portal, you won't see anything here. It'll be blank. So what the first page of the facility tab will show is any pending links, any canceled links, any approved links to a facility will show here. And this is where Hawkeye can manage those facilities. So right now I can see Happy Days is a facility that is pending as a link request. So basically when I see this as Hawkeye, it looks like it hasn't been approved yet because Happy Days has initiated a link request to Hawkeye. So Hawkeye has to confirm or approve that link as well. So if I click on approve, then I'll get a pop-up. But the pop-up is really another level of confirmation of, is this the correct facility that I'm going to be working at? And if I acknowledge that, say, yes, this is the right place, all the things look great, cool. I'm going to click submit. Now, that status has changed from pending to approved, and that link active checkbox has been checked. So now what Hawkeye can do is go to Happy Days' facility, go to the facility portal, log in, and then I can go into Happy Days and access that facilities portal and some of the functions and features depending on what his role is. I can also unlink from that facility as well. So if I click on that, another confirmation pop-up pops up. If I click on acknowledge and then submit, now my link is severed. There's basically no link anymore. I can't access that facilities portal features no longer. So I will show you a little bit more functionality, but we'll move on to linking a facility. So the link, if I have a new card and I want to link to my new facility that I'm working at, I'm going to go up to the top right corner. There's a button called Link Facility. So I'm going to click on that. And the form comes up. Basically, it's such a search bar. So I'm going to go into that search bar, and I'm going to go in and say, I want to work at Marley and Me's Weed Emporium. So I'm going to search for Marley and Me's Weed Emporium. Then it pops up as a result. And basically what you can do is search via the name of the dispensary, the street address, the city, the phone number. It will pull all that information over if there's a match. So if I click on that radio button, I'm saying that, yes, this is the facility that I want to link to. I click continue on the bottom right. Then you'll see that pop up again, very similar information. I'm going to click, yes, this is the correct place. I'm going to submit that. All right. So then it takes me back to the facilities main page. As you can see, Marley is showing up at that bottom of the list as pending. And then I can cancel this link request if I, end up not working there, or the site was wrong, or I did it in error. But basically, I can cancel it as long as the facility hasn't acted on the request on their end. This is the option for me. All right, so that's kind of the gist of the functions and features of linking via the facility tab of the individual portal. Okay.
Great, thank you, Dan. We did have one question come up from Dixon that wants to know if in the search field, when you're trying to link to a facility, if you can use the license, if you have to use the license name, the DBA, or if you can use both.
You can use, so here, DBA or whatever the name is.
I believe it'll come up as any of them, right? It would come up with the license name, the DBA. Yeah, any search you can use, and it should come up.
Even if it's the legal name, which would be kind of hard. But like if I did it, I think of one for our training environment. But most of the time, it will just be whatever name that you have publicly shared. You'll just search for that first, or you can just search by phone number.
Yeah. So we have two other questions that kind of relate to the same thing, and I'll go ahead and answer these from Nanya and Tasha. What is to stop an FA from linking to dispensaries with whom they are not associated? And then also, how can that link, it can be it can be initiated by the FA or the POBM, and that is correct. So basically, think of it this way: the FA owns their card. They own their process where they work, so they can have their card that's approved, and then now they can choose to link it to a certain facility. They can link it to as many facilities as they want. They're not going to be able to work there unless the POBM approves it. So it doesn't matter if they do make a mistake. I mean, obviously the less mistakes, the better, but it still has to be approved. And vice versa, the POBM can initiate if you want to go ahead and do that for the FA and initiate for them, just so it's less for them to have to worry about, then they still have to approve it on their end. So that relationship has to be married together, but can be initiated by either party. So hopefully that answers your questions. And then we also have, Maddie says, are we still able to cancel FA licenses when they are no longer with the dispensary they work for? So the way that works is that you can unlink. It's no longer like an employee relationship where you would terminate the employee. You're just unlinking them from your facility, because unlike the DA card, the DA, they were a part of your dispensary and you owned everything. From this perspective, they own their card, so you're just responsible for unlinking it. And as Dan said, that will sever the relationship, so they no longer have access to your facility's information in the facility portal.
Mm-hmm. So Maddie, who asked that question?
Yeah, Maddie. Okay,
so as you can see on this, the Happy Days facility, I have approved, or the link has been approved by both parties. So that's why it shows as approved and checked. But if Hawkeye is like, oh, I don't work there anymore, and I just want to clean up my list, I can always unlink, and I'll show you here what it looks like. Once I submit that request from the FA side, that link is now no longer active. So it's then unlinked from, and then it was initiated by me. So then,
which means when they go into the facility portal, they will no longer be able to view that facility's information.
Correct.
Okay. I'm going to keep on moving. Great questions. Good points of clarification. So I'm going to keep moving forward with the next part of this demo, which is going to be right back at you here in a second, Dan. But we do want to move into the dual conversion application and linking now. But before we do that, I just want to reorient you back to the process of where we're at. So we just went through number 1. We completed the FA application. Again, that must be done by POBMs and FAs who are looking to operate as a dual or an establishment. It is not necessary. Nobody has to go out and do any of this, but if you are planning to operate as a dual or an establishment, then it is going to be something that is required. If you do complete the FA application, then the expectation is that that's how you're going to operate. So now we're going to move into completing the dual conversion. So this would be the POBM coming in to say, I want to convert my dispensary license to a dual establishment. And so we're going to go through that process. Before we do, I just want to remind you from some of the questions that were just asked. If you look over here through these linking questions, it says over here, if I'm the FA, I can either link to a facility or approve my link request. And then the same thing down here, I can either link facility to an FA or approve their link request. And then number 6 is that relationship has now been connected. Okay. Dan, I'm going to turn it back over to you to move into the dual conversion.
Awesome. Okay. So the moment you all have been waiting for, the dual conversion application. It's coming. All right. So I'm going to just set the stage here real quick again. I am no longer in the individual licensing portal. I'm going to be in the facility portal. So that you're familiar with this, POBM's managers, or you live in this world. So I'm going to go ahead and log in, I believe, as Hawkeye again. Great. So Hawkeye is logged in. Typically, you won't see these establishment tiles or dual tiles. This is just for the training, so it's a lot easier for us to flow. But you'll just see that dispensary tile as you're used to, right? So pretend these aren't here. Hawkeye's going to go into his dispensary. I'm going to click on that dispensary tile, and then I'm going to click on Wonderweed. That's his dispensary of choice. And then similar everything. This is just dispensary, so nothing's really new. But I'm going to go in to reach for that dual application. So I'm going to go into the Applications tab, which is well named. Then we're going to go into the dual license application, which is part of the facility applications list of applications here. Okay. So I'm going to click on that. And then the standard agreements page, this will be modified obviously as we get more information or new information. I'm going to click beyond that. So kind of by design, we made this really, really easy. Clicks of buttons, basically. All your information is pre-populated. So any information that you had at the start of the application will be shown here based off of the requirements from rule and statute on a dual application. So you don't need to fill out anything. This is all done for you. So for Hawkeye, you can, go through it, double check, making sure anything is, an issue or not correct. Then he can always go back out, submit whatever he needs to do to change that information, come back, get that approved, come back here, and then submit the application. So one thing that we can't show here in the training environment, it's being developed still, is there's one field. Gina, do you have that slide? Do you want to share the mock-up real quick? And we're going to go back out and show you the slide of a mock-up. So all this information is there. And then as Gina's screen is loading up, there is an option for those sites or facilities that have cultivation on-site, cultivation off-site, and prepare edibles as approved to items on your certificate. There's going to be a dynamic question that appears based off of what you have as approved to items. And that question is, do you want to move it from your dispensary certificate to your establishment certificate? Because you're a dual now, you're going to manage two different certificates. So if you opt in to move that, that is going to remove it from your approved to items list from your dispensary certificate to your establishment certificate, and they'll be housed differently. They'll be called slightly different things, but this is where you can do it in the dual application. You can do this, at some other point probably, but for right now, the dual application will allow you to do that as an option if you have those already pre-approved or approved before. So we couldn't show that to you here just based off the training environment, but that will be available when you actually go in there. All right, let me take back that screen. Maybe. Okay. So sorry, it's like a very cumbersome process to get back. All right, so we're back on the application. So that section would be here. But then if I go in down a little bit more, all the listed POBMs will be here. Right now I only have one. So it's only Hawkeye that is the POBM. But if you had 12, it would list all those POBMs here with this upload component. So each and every POBM is required to upload an attestation just to confirm that you are really going to do this and you're going to go in and convert to a dual. So I'm going to put an attestation in there. Okay, and basically that's all I really need to do. Answer those questions if they're applicable to me, upload that attestation confirming that I do want to apply for a dual, and then just to double check the review page just to be consistent with other applications, I'm going to see all that information yet again. Then I'm going to click submit. There is a fee associated to it. We don't have that in the training environment right now, but basically you just go into the payment portal, process your payment in credit card form only, and then we'll come back out, and then we'll go back into the portal. And then for you to check on the status of that, you're just going to go back to your dispensary that you've applied for a dual at, and just go back in and just click on application history. Now I have this submitted dual application. You'll see this is an old one because we've tested, but you'll see that I've submitted a dual application for Hawkeye. Okay, and I just did it this morning, so that's why we have 2. But you can't really do 2. But in the training environment, is what we can see. But any questions on that before we go into the dual sitemap?
Question. So if our current medical license has 1 POBM, that's the only POBM that is going to or needs to show up on the facility on the dual application. Is that correct or incorrect?
If there's only 1 POBM for that site?
Yes.
Yep. Yep. You'll only see 1. You'll see basically that populate with all the POBMs that are linked as POBMs to that dispensary show up there. Even if it's 1 or 2 or many.
Okay. We have another question. Does the application fee for conversion need to be submitted electronically? Yes. Everything must be done via credit card. So regardless of that application, that will be required. And is it the same attestation form as always? James asks.
The attestation form is on the application, or I'm sorry, on the establishment page under the adult use marijuana website. There's an establishment page, and now there is an attestation specifically for the POBMs seeking to apply for a dual license.
Great.
And those will be available like when you open up the application. We just didn't have that in this version.
Awesome. Okay. It looks like we there's no other questions in the chat right now. We can keep going.
Awesome. Okay. So let's pretend that Hawkeye had submitted that dispensary dual application. It got approved, and now I can rock and roll. But I'm going to use a different facilities. But right now, then this application, upon approval of that application, that dual tile will show up. So all my duals will live here. Okay. So I'll click on that dual tile to open that up. As it loads, take a second. From a dual perspective, you're going to get a lot more tabs and a lot more functionality because we're managing 2 sides of the business and 2 different entities, right? So you're going to have one side, the establishment side. So you're going to have some of the functionality from the establishment side, then some of the functionality from the dispensary side. So that's inclusive of card search and sales, something we're very familiar with, sales history, those types of things. You're going to have that on here, and it's getting very big menu here, but all that stuff we'll just kind of glaze over. Facility details similar to what we had before. All information that's current will show up here. So it's a one-stop shop just to double check if my dual is up to date with the hours and whatnot. So I can update those through via various applications. So I'm still going to have this my ID cards tab. So my ID cards tab is only going to show my dispensary agent card because that's the only one that lives in the facility portal. So that's still going to be there. And just an FYI, when we have a dual, we want to make sure that all POBMs for a dual have an FA card. And that's because you're managing an establishment too. So I'll go into a little bit more detail on the facility certificates on a different account, but basically I'll just show it to you later. And then as we go down the list of things, applications still, this will be populated once we go live with change apps and things like that. So it's similar to what we have in the dispensaries. You can modify things. You can update your information, application history, very similar. You'll still see facility related ones and employee ones. This will be different for the establishment. That's why I'm pointing it out now. But then we go back into these tabs, these employee tabs. But before, when you had your dispensary, it just said employees. So you just go in there, you can see your employees. But here, we have to delineate between the 2 types of employees. Your dispensary agents are going to be one tab. So all my dispensary agents will live here with an active card, and I can manage those cards, download those cards, do all those things, similar to what we have currently today. But then there's another tab that says employees. This is for your FAs. This is where all my FAs that have pending links up or approved links or canceled links will appear here. All canceled links will disappear. after about 60 days or so, but all my approved ones will still be here. We've also included card expiration for the POBM to see like, oh, your card is going to come up. I can filter with that, have it, sort with the latest or the most the closest card expiration date, just to make sure I'm managing those people and saying like, hey, FYI, your FA card's going to expire soon. Make sure you go renew it or something like that. Because we can't renew it in the employees tab for FAs anyway, because obviously those live elsewhere. So we can always filter this list as needed by name, by whatever. So we'll see that there. If I click on the expand buttons, this is still pending. I can approve this link similar to what we did before. Pop-up comes up. Yep, this is Hank. I want him to work here. I'm approving this link. And also, if I have an approved link, there was a question about terminating an employee before. So we'll go a little bit into that. So I don't want Bruce Banner to work here anymore. I can go in here, unlink him from my facility, similar pop-up, confirm, submit that, and it will go and just it'll notify also. Once we do these things, there's notifications that go out via email to your facility email account that you have a pending approval or whatever link request, or the facility agent will receive them too to their whatever email it's linked to their account. That, oh, FYI, there's a link request that has been submitted. Go in and manage that. And then you can also see the card search and sales toggle button, because if they're going to work at my my dispensary side and I need to have them access card search and sales, I can toggle that on and off. But they won't have access to it until I approve that link, obviously. But you can do this in real time here for Bruce. I won't unlink him, but and then if you want to hire someone new, I'm going to go into link facility agent in this button below here. Similar form as before, but all I really need to do is search by that person's name or their card ID if you have the card ID. So if I'm going to do an example, I'm going to put Bugs Bunny or something. I don't know. Frank. Or let me pull up someone that has one. All right. We have Raven. She's a new hire. I'm going to click on this radio button to confirm that I want to submit a link request to her. Click complete and submit. So now, similar to what we had before, she shows up here as pending. And if that was a wrong person, like, oh, I didn't mean to send it to her, I can cancel that. And cancel that as well, as long as they haven't acted on the link request to confirm it or not. Those options and those buttons will change in name, but I can still cancel it. Okay. So any questions on the dual site?
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions in here. So one question is, how often does an FA card need to be renewed? I believe that's 2 years.
2 years. Hmm?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so the answer to that is 2 years. Are dual employees required to have both DA and FA cards? Yes. So think of it that the FA card kind of trumps the DA card in that you're able to work at any facility. So if you are working at something other than a dispensary only, you will need an FA card. And how much?
Just really quick on that one too, just to piggyback off that. It depends as well. If you're, well, I kind of alluded, we mentioned this last week, but I think that's more of a program issue. But it depends on where certain functionality lies within your approved to items as well. So you'll be required, some employees may be required to have both, but you definitely need an FA card.
So you're gonna have to have both a DA card and an FA card going forward in perpetuity now, or we're all gonna convert. If you have a dual license, you're gonna just convert to FA cards for everybody.
But maybe Megan, you can clarify that. But
sure. So principal officers and board members will be expected to maintain both a facility agent card and a dispensary agent card, since you are a POBM on both licenses essentially. Now, if you have employees that are only working in the retail/dispensary facility, they can just have a facility agent card, assuming that if you have on-site cultivation or anything that you have approved to do on-site, is you're having that done under your establishment license. If that's the case, again, those employees would only need a facility agent card. If you transition current cultivation sites that you have approved to your establishment license, then anyone working in those facilities only needs a facility agent card. The only people who will need a DA card going forward are those working in a cultivation site that you have under your medical license and the principal officers and board members. Everyone else needs an FA card. Principal officers and board members do need to maintain both, since they essentially own both of those licenses. And anyone working in a cultivation site that is tied to the medical license must have a dispensary agent card.
Perfect. Thank you, Megan. Explanation. I also think that I think you may have answered the cultivation question that's in here from Chris. Do you need both cards for retail only, but not the cultivation sites? Correct. Oops, I'm losing my chat. Did you answer that in your? I know you spoke to cultivation, but I'm not sure if you covered that specifically.
So if it's for a dual licensee, anyone who's working in the retail/dispensary location, the card they need is a facility agent card.
Okay. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, Chris. Also the question, how much is a dual conversion application fee?
The application for all new establishments for early applicants is $25,000.
Is that also for dual conversion?
Yes, because they are applying for a new establishment license. That's
okay.
So that
Just
is
want to
the
make
fee.
sure nobody's confused on the language because for dual and establishment. Okay, great. Let's see. POBM submit their FA via the individual licensing portal or via their facility portal. So yes, anything that's done from an individual perspective, so submitting and applying for an FA card or license is always done in the individual licensing portal. Think of it as your driver's license or your patient ID card. It's an individual card to you. It's not something different from the dispensary side. It's not something that the facility is going to own. It's what you own. That's your individual portal. So any applications for that FA card are through the individual licensing portal, if that helps explain the why behind it. So once a DA card expires at the retail location, we don't need to reapply since they will have an FA card.
If they've
applied for an FA card. Right? Sorry, Dan, what'd you say?
All right, yeah, as long as they're just working at the retail/dispensary location.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then Megan, did you say something, or were you going to say something?
I didn't quite hear the question, but yes, as long as you're at the retail location, it's the facility agent card that you will need moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Great. The next question is, can a DA card be converted to an FA card? No, they are different cards. They are different licenses. So they are a different application altogether.
And also it's important to note that, you know, a dispensary agent card can only be obtained by a principal officer board member applying on behalf of that person. And so really that card essentially belongs to that dispensary. A facility agent card, anyone is able to apply for a facility agent card. And until that linking is done in the system, it's not linked to any establishment. So it belongs to the person. It doesn't belong to that dispensary. That's why.
When would an employee need to have both a DA and an FA card? I'm assuming is the last part of that question, Mike. Megan just spoke to that. It's when they would need to have both. And it's if they're actually, I mean, well, I don't want to mess it up again, but basically the FA card is the most important card. That's what you will use in a dual or an establishment. If you are a POBM, you need to have both cards.
Yes, Gina, and again, when you apply to become a dual licensee to get your establishment license, and then you'll have both licenses, on that application, you will have the opportunity to tell us if you currently have on-site cultivation and you have off-site cultivation. You will have the opportunity to tell us in that application, do you want those sites to be under the establishment license or under the medical license? If you choose to have your on-site cultivation under your medical license, then anyone at that facility is going to have DA cards as well. So if you put it under your establishment license, then at that location where your actual dispensary and retail location is, they would only need to have FA cards.
It looks like there's a lot of questions around this, so I think it might be helpful for us. We can create a little cheat sheet for you guys, a job aid that will reference the questions that you have around DA cards versus FA cards, if that makes it easier, and we can put that out on the site for you.
I have a question on the order of operations. So if I'm an FA agent, or I'm applying for my FA agent card, that goes into my system. Does DHS approve that on your end before the POBM is able to link them in the POBMs?
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, correct. And when I get back to that process overview chart, I'll show you. It's not necessarily called out as a number, but it is in there that ADHS will review before moving on to that step 3. Okay, just a few more questions, and then we're gonna keep moving. So Megan, do you want to speak to the credit card? We have a question about the $25,000 having a credit card that has that limit on it to be able to pay via credit card.
I don't have anything to add to that. That is the requirement.
Okay, and I think that we can certainly address that later if you have more questions around it. It's just more of that is the requirement for a reason. We can't take $25,000 in any other form. We're going to move on to there was one other one I was going to answer. James, I think we already answered this, and again, it's dependent on where they are working, which facility type. But your question is, do employees will only require an FA card right now, employees hired today? So obviously today, we're not FA cards they can't even apply for yet, not until January 19th. But again, depending on the type of facility would determine what card they would need. All right, I'm gonna just a few more questions in here, and then we'll move on. Will we be able to transition an offsite cultivation to ME status at a later date, or does it have to be at the time of dual license application? We actually addressed this later in the presentation, so we'll answer that question then. But the answer is yes. Now is that you can do it both, but we'll talk about the differences of when. The FA card will have access to the verification system for medical patients. Amy's asking, will the FA card have access to the verification system for medical patients?
Yes, I was just more or less asking, so if right now we have DAs that log into the verification for their allotment, so the FA is going to assume that responsibility and not need the DA card going forward once we are that dual licensee. So the FA will automatically have access to DHS verification for recording those allotments. Mm-hmm. It will no longer have to be a DA that does that, correct?
Yes, the FA card will allow that user or employee to access the patient's card search and sales, as long as they're just work at the retail site. So they're able to do that.
Thank you.
Yep, and then you'll still toggle the access for that person. Like I'll show you on the screen, similar to what you do for the DAs today. If I have an approved user, Pepper Potts, I can toggle that card search and sales for that user to give them permission. So if they're working on the retail side, they're checking people in, logging sales, I will want to do this for Pepper every time. Once I submit the link, obviously, but okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say there's one more question about cultivation. So Austin, I was just going to say we'll get to that when we talk about cultivation towards the end of the presentation. But it's essentially the same as above.
So is it okay if we proceed with the site? There's one more piece that we want to talk about.
One more piece? Okay, yeah, before we move on. Okay.
Yep. And then so remember when we talked about certificates, we kind of glazed over it initially. Well, I want to spend a little bit of time on it. This is what if you think about it this way, once we have a dual and the application is approved, what Megan was talking about before was you're creating a whole new facility type, right? So you're going to have 2 sites. You're still going to have your dispensary certificate, but now I'm going to have an establishment certificate as well. So that's why in that dual application, we're asking if you want to put on the establishment side those 2 things, the prepare edibles and your cultivation site. And you can notice too that these are going to be very different. This was issued on 1/11, so this application this certificate will expire on a different day. So these are 2 different things. We're managing 2 different certificates, so then 2 different numbers. Those are things that you'll be able to retrieve via the facility portal, and you can download those and you can post them where they need to be posted. And they're it'll make more sense once we start having more approved 2 items. But essentially, they're 2 different certificates with 2 different dates and different approved 2 items. Okay, that's all I really wanted to talk about on the certificate side. But
okay, great.
So, question on the certificate. So over here I have my medical. Over here I have my establishment.
Sure.
Is this is a question that we've discussed before? But so is this the number that needs to be labeled on my product before it leaves the door? The new.
So I think we're going to hold on that one. I know that came up on the call last week, and I think that's more of, Megan, I'll let you speak to this, but that's more of your policies and procedures of how you're handling inventory, right?
Yes. It's all we care about is when it goes out the door. If it's going out with a patient, it has to have the DRC number. If it's going out as adult use, it has to have that adult use number. So how the dispensaries choose to handle that in the business is up to them if they choose to have both of those numbers or have a different way of doing it at that time. But yes, that's all I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then one last thing about the certificates for the establishment side of the house. We'll have a quick guide on what these terms for approved 2 items mean. Right now, you're used to the dispensary side being listed as these things and additional ones. For the facility establishments, they're going to be slightly different. The naming convention is slightly different. So we'll have a chart that will explain what each item means. When you start to manage an establishment side of the house, you'll see these things come up, and we just want to make sure it's easy for you to understand. Basically, it'll be defined a little bit more clearly as we proceed. But for all intents and purposes for this training part, we just wanted to allude to that, and then we'll share more details as we create that support for you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. Okay, we are just going to take a quick transition back to the slides for a moment so we can talk about the establishment application. So again, taking you back to this overview slide, and the 3 things that were most important for us to cover with you as far as a process and a demo goes are these items 1 and 2. So we did the FA application already. And then we just did a dual conversion application. So now we're going to go through a demo of the establishment application. All of these other things, and this is where I was referencing this ADHS review and approval happens before any of these other steps do happen. So that's when cards are issued, certificates are generated, all the linking and the approvals and all that stuff happens when the relationship is built after the ADHS approval. So we are going to now move into the establishment application, and that will be our last demo portion before we get into next steps and other questions before next week.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to present here, but all right. Can you see my screen okay? It's
Yes.
taking a minute. It's this gray now. All right, so we're still at Bruce Banner. Don't ignore all this other stuff. But as a potential establishment applicant, I'm going to go in to the marijuana facility licensing portal, because imagine I don't have a facility or whatever. I'm not a POBM yet. I'm just trying to be one. So I'm going to go into the facility marijuana tab or tile, sorry, and all this stuff is familiar to you guys. And then we're down here in the application section, I will have an establishment application tab or tile, sorry. This pops up. This disclaimer saying every POBM has to have an active facility agent card prior to applying. And if I don't, if I click this, it'll open up the facility agent app for me to apply for. Okay. Well, it'll take me to the portal. Establishment application agreement page. We're going to glaze over this part. This is going to be modified, obviously, because once we have this updated, this is actually changing this week. As I agree to that, very similar to back in the day when whoever from your team applied for the DRC. This is very similar to that. All the information is kind of similar. I'm going to make up a place. And then we'll just quickly go through it since you all are POBMs already. This is not new stuff. Okay, so. Right, so as Gina had mentioned earlier on in the presentation, there is a set list of counties that I can only apply for an establishment for at this point. This list is any counties with 2 or less, or so I think 2 or less, or less than 2 dispensaries currently. So these get priority at this point. So I'm just going to pick one of those for the sake of training. And then it's pre-populates my email as a primary. These are things very similar to the dispensary side. I want to add all this stuff. Okay. And then my county, before I forget. All right, so all this information is for the business side, the organization that's applying. This is the full legal name of the establishment, the name I want to call it. Okay, and this is the company behind the application. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed to the application information section. This is where I'm going to put all the POBMs that are applying. So Bruce Banner, oops, you're already in there. And I'm going to consent to do business electronically. Okay. So then it pre-populates Bruce Banner's information down here. So I don't need to do it again. I just need to add a birthday. Maybe. Boop. And then fingerprint stuff. We already talked about this, but that shows I need a fingerprint ID. Let's put that in there for now. And then if I needed to add another POBM, because there's more than one, I can select that. Then I can enter information. So not only does it, since the POBMs have to have active FA cards already, this part is just reiterating that they need a user account before applying, so they can actually be found in the system. I'm going to go ahead and enter one. It searches that, confirms if this person has a account. It'll pre-populate the first and last name, and I start entering the street address and all that stuff. Sorry, my connection is very slow. All of a sudden. All right, so I'll just pretend to do all this. Okay. My date of birth. Oops. Okay, now let's upload that POBM attestation for him. Okay, and then I'll just click save and continue just to proceed. And then the rest of this is just me uploading all this stuff to the application, similar to what we had before. I don't think we need to go through this, but we can try to go through it quickly. Let's just give me
Do you need to go through it for any of the showing of the site map?
No.
Or okay.
No. So if once we go through the upload components for each of these required documents, we'll just submit the application, go to the payment review page like we showed you before, like 2 or 3 times before. Then we'll submit that and it'll just go take me to the payment portal, and I'll just pay the fee, and then I will go in and come back to this page, and then I can check my status for the establishment via that same marijuana facility licensing tab or tile, and then check application status. But for now, we'll just pretend that it was approved. So I'm going to go through what the establishment looks like really quick for this last little bit. So for my establishment, I'm going to click on Happy Days. All right. So you'll notice that the tabs are a lot less and fewer than your duals and your dispensaries, because there's not a lot of functionality that is housed in the portal for these establishment facilities, because we don't really log sales, and we don't verify patients or caregivers cards in here. It's just the basic stuff is facility details tab, my certificate. I can download that, applications to modify or update or change information for my establishment, the application history, and then similar things that we just talked about before, my employees. So all my employees will be FAs for establishments. So all of them will be in here. We no longer have the employees dash dispensary agents in here because we don't have any DAs. And similar functionality, I can link, I can do all that stuff like we showed you before. And then that's kind of it for the establishment side as far as from the portal's functions perspective. And I'll throw it back to Gina.
Yeah, we do have a couple of questions, and I'll go ahead and answer those questions. So Patricia asked about the counties that meet the requirement for the new establishment application. So I don't know if you saw it on there, Patricia, when he was going through the demo, but when you are doing the establishment application, there is a drop down to select your county, and only those counties that are in that drop down currently meet the requirement. And I don't know them off the top of my head, but there's how many? 7, 8 of them. You won't be able to select a county that does not meet the requirement. The system is designed that way, so there aren't any issues or errors there.
Right. You just can't. They won't even show on the list for you to select. And I can show that to you on the screen. Oh, go ahead.
We will post that on the website, what the counties are that will be open, but I just caution everyone that it can change. It can change between now and the 19th, and it can change after the 19th. So just be aware of that. That's why we haven't put it out there yet, because until we're closer, it didn't make a lot of sense to put it out there.
Yeah. Are you guys checking on whether the counties have, and the cities in those counties have said they're not going to allow marijuana establishments in there? Because my understanding is Santa Cruz, for instance, is on the list, but it's not. They've already passed resolutions or ordinances saying there's no medical establishment in there other than medical. And since they don't have any medical, they're not going to have any kind of thing.
So what we'll do is, all we can do is go put what's available according to our statutes and rules. We cannot do anything about what the counties or local jurisdictions decide to do with zoning. So what you'll see is just what's available according to our statutes and rules.
And when you apply, you got to have a zoning letter or authorization from the local jurisdiction. So if you don't get it, you can't apply, I guess, is the solution.
The form is up on the website now that has to be filled out by the local jurisdiction, saying that you could get zoning, the proper zoning documentation to open at that location.
If later they change their mind, the county changes their mind, is it those licenses gone then because they didn't get done in this time frame?
That would be going back to the statute and the definition of an early applicant and the time frame. those early applications are only accepted between January 19th and March 9th.
Good questions. Okay, Mike asked, do we have to wait for the POBM to be approved for their facility agent license prior to applying for an establishment license or a dual license? So yes and no. If you're applying for a dual license, you can go ahead and apply for both, but they won't be able to be linked until they're both approved. So if you want to submit those applications, there's nothing that's going to stop you. However, on the establishment license, as we just went over, it's going to do that pop-up that you have to already have an approved FA license to apply for the establishment. And if you don't, it's going to prompt you to fill out that application before you can continue. Megan, is there anything else? Did I say that correctly? Well, you have to link correctly for the establishment will have to be approved.
Yeah. I mean, there's with the existing dispensaries, it's really kind of the chicken or the egg, and you can do it in either order, but you know, you'll need to apply for both. It behooves everyone to apply for those facility agent cards as quickly as you can.
And then last question. I don't know if we want to talk about this briefly because I know there's been a handful of questions on fingerprints. What is a level 1 fingerprint card and where do we get them?
So a level 1 fingerprint clearance card is something that for many occupations you have to have. If you're going to be a teacher, you have to have a level 1 fingerprint clearance card. You can obtain them through DPS. That's who actually issues them. There's different ways to get them. You can go get your prints rolled just like you do and submit them to us. But instead of submitting them to us, you'd submit them with an application to DPS. There's also places, field print places, where there's a little bit of a higher fee, but they do it electronically and you get the card very quickly. The initiative allows us to accept a level 1 fingerprint clearance card instead of the rolled prints that we then send for the background check. The issue is the initiative did not address it in the DPS statute. So there's nothing that allows you to get a level 1 fingerprint clearance card specifically to be a facility agent. However, if you have one because you have worked or may potentially work in one of those other fields that requires it, such as teaching, or I believe you can get one for hemp, the hemp program with Department of Ag. Like if there's a reason that you would get one for a different reason, then you can submit that to us because the Smart and Safe Act does allow for it.
Great, thank you, Megan, and thank you, Dan, for the Vanna White demo as she was speaking to it. Okay, that's all the questions that are in the chat. So I am going to get back to the presentation if we're ready to move on. Uh-oh, I heard a. Okay, there's one more question. Hold, please. All right. Is there a limit on the number of dual licensee applications that will be approved for a county?
So the statute allows for counties that have less than 2 dispensaries for us to accept applications. And so if there's currently 1 dispensary in a county, we would potentially approve 1 application for an establishment. If there's 0, then we could approve up to 2, assuming we get the qualified application.
Okay, thank you, Megan. And Heather, I'm going to hold on your question. Oh,
Megan, just a question on that. So our dispensary is in Coolidge and there's one in Casa Grande. We're in Pinal County. I think other cities that are in Pinal County also include like Santan Valley and stuff like that. So will all existing medical dispensaries in a given county be, as long as they're in good standing, be approved for a dual license, or is it capped at 2?
Oh, no. All existing dispensaries have the opportunity to apply to become a dual licensee, and as long as they submit those application requirements within that time frame, then there should be nothing stopping you from getting approved. So obviously, Maricopa County has way more than 2 medical marijuana dispensaries. There's nothing preventing all of those dispensaries that are in good standing from submitting those application requirements and getting approved as dual licensees. The allocation piece that's happening is specifically for those counties that do have less than 2 medical marijuana dispensaries, so that they can get allocated additional establishment-only licenses in those counties to serve the people in those counties that are not served by a dispensary.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for the asking the clarification. And then, Heather, I'm going to hold on yours because this next slide that we're going to is going to talk a little bit more about cultivation. So we can get to that question then. Okay, so things to know. So we have just finished all of the demo pieces of today's presentation. So we talked about the facility application and then both the dual and the establishment, covered how linking works and things of that nature. These are some other things that are just kind of reiterating some things that we talked about because they have a tendency to pop up as the most frequently asked questions, or there's just still a little confusion. So every employee must submit an FA application to work in a dual or an establishment, and this includes the POBMs. I think we're all clear on that now, but I know it has come up several weeks leading into where we are today. So just to reiterate, that is the way it is if you are planning to operate as a dual or an establishment. If you're not, then no need to worry about it. FAs own their card. So I know that this is that new piece of linking and understanding the difference between termination of an employee versus linking of an employee. So FAs own their card, which means they are responsible for applying for their card. The POBM is no longer doing that for them. The FAs must go in and apply for their card, for paying the fee associated with that card, and then for initiating the link to the facility or approving the link request that the facility sent them. So there is action required on the part of every FA, and that's important. That's going to be something that you guys can help them with. We're also going to put out some references and resources, I'll get to that on the next slide, of things that will help walk them through that process. I know some questions have come up around, well, what if they don't want to pay for that fee? Those are things that you can figure out amongst each of your own facilities, how you want to handle it, but just know from our end, on the back end, that they must apply for their card, pay for the fee, and then initiate or approve the links. So that's very important. Applicants should use their same email address that they currently use for other portals. So Dan covered that when he was talking about signing into the portal at the beginning. That keeps it really clean and easy and simple for you guys. Of course, if somebody new is coming in and they don't already have a portal account, then they're going to apply for one just as you had to in the very beginning. But keeping that same email address consistent across portals is important. And then all applications must be paid by credit card. Again, that is something that is going to be necessary in order to move forward with these applications. Now we're going to talk about cultivation. And I'll pause when I'm done with this just to see if there's questions around any of these points. When it comes to cultivation, I'm going to go through this and then I'm going to turn it over to Megan because she is the guru on this and can speak to it much better than I. But a couple of things to note that may preemptively answer your questions. If you already have an approved cultivation site, you can move it under the new establishment license during this application process now. So you will have the opportunity, if you're applying for a new establishment, to move it under that license. However, if you wait and not do it now, if you go and apply for a new establishment and you don't move your cultivation site, then later on, you're going to have to follow that normal process that you would, which would be starting from the beginning, which means paying the fee, getting an inspection, and all of those other things. Currently, if you transfer it now, it's free to do it because it's part of the process, and you don't have to have that inspection connected to it. And then we're not doing any change applications because we're doing this early application period. And as I said at the beginning of what's phase 1 and what's phase 2. So phase 2 is change applications. And that's not going to be possible until after April 1st. So I'm going to pause there and see, Megan, if you want to add any color or context to what I just shared.
Yes. So once your establishment license is approved and you become a dual licensee, that is true. We're not going to be accepting change applications until April 1st for any of those establishments. I know some of you currently have some change applications that are open right now. My team is working really hard to get to those and hopefully get those processed and approved as soon as possible, as long as everything that you have in meets the requirements. We would encourage you to wait to submit your establishment application to become a dual licensee until that change is approved. It will make the process smoother. I'm not saying you can't, I'm just saying it will make the process smoother on both ends if you do, and we are working, the team knows that is a priority right now to get those processed and approved. And I would not suggest submitting any other change applications right now. Let's all get through this and get through the conversion and everything else before we move around too much right now.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to pause there to see if you guys have any questions on any of these bullets before we move on to the next slide. And I don't know, is there anything in the chat? I'm not looking at that screen.
Yes, Gina, there is one in the chat. It says, how much is an FA card?
An FA card application fee is $300 if you're submitting the rolled prints to us. And then if you have a level 1 fingerprint clearance card that you're submitting and uploading with that application, it is $150.
Great, thank you, Megan.
That's it for the chat right now.
Okay, thank you. Then I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next slide, which is next steps. So these are just recommended next steps, and we're going to talk about before and after the 19th. So 19th is when we are going live with this functionality, and these are the things that we're going to recommend. Reviewing the updated POBM handbook. It's not out yet. We're still making revisions as there are still things that are happening, but it will be posted prior to January 19th. As I mentioned, we're also creating quick start guides for you. And here's the reason for that. So we've covered a lot of content today in completing the FA application, the establishment, and the dual, and then how to link. When you go to that POBM handbook, it's a handbook of everything. And so rather than you having to search for things in that POBM handbook, you're just going to have a handful of quick start guides. So one quick start guide is going just to walk you through the steps of completing an FA application. Another one is going to walk you through the steps of completing a dual, linking, those kinds of things. So those will also be posted in time for go live. So when it comes time, when you're able to actually complete those applications, you'll be able to reference those guides. And so will your employees. Your DAs will be able to reference those to fill out their FA application and so on. We are recording this training. We're also doing one more session this afternoon. You're welcome to come to that one as well if you feel like you need to hear a repeat, but we're recording it. And one of the recordings we'll release. We'll probably choose the best one and release it to you so that way you can watch it back. And then, of course, as always, reaching out to ADHS with any questions. After January 19th, we strongly encourage you to complete the following tasks if you're converting to a dual. So drop off or mail in your fingerprints to ADHS. And we recommend, we're going to say dropping off is going to expedite the process. So Megan, I don't know if we talked about having any allocated time or not, or just dropping off at any point in time. Did we ever land anywhere with that?
We were going to have some hours, but we've heard some feedback that the dispensaries would rather us not have specific hours. So, okay. But we're prepared to accept them anytime on Tuesday, and we have people dedicated to entering them into our system so that we'll be ready to go and get those FA cards approved.
Great. Okay, so yeah, you can still mail them in as usual if you'd like to do that, but just knowing that that could hold up the application approval process because they're going to be required in order to approve the application. So if you want to drop them off to expedite that, then you are more than welcome to do that. And then we have the POBMs need to apply for their FA card, and the DAs need to apply for their FA card, again, if converting to a dual. Or an establishment as well, but we don't have on here the list of all the applications just because that FA card is that first step. We want to make sure everybody does. So things to do right out of the gate on January 19th. And we do want you to wait until January 19th to drop off, thereafter to drop off your fingerprints. Okay, resources. And talk a little bit about this because there's been a recent update to your resource where you can get them from, get your resources. So you're probably all familiar now with the fact that there are new adult use web pages. Those web pages are continuously being updated and will continue to be for several weeks and or months, years to come as the program develops and as new functionalities and information is available. One thing that has recently changed is that the access to get to your training materials, quick reference guides, I mentioned all of that. We've recently changed the name to that. So you used to have the medical marijuana only, but now with adult use, we're making it just your marijuana training resources when we change the name. So over here on this left-hand side, you're gonna see this is the medical marijuana page. That's just because where this link lives, but it is accessible from the adult use page as well. So down here on this left menu bar, when you get to the web page, you're going to see where it says training resources for the MLMS. If you click on that, it's going to open up this page, and on this page, oops, that is not what I wanted to do. On this page, you're going to hit this drop down number 2, and that's where all of your resources will live. They currently live there. Your POBM handbook lives there, your DA handbooks live there, but you're going to see when they are uploaded by the 19th, you'll see the new versions of those available. So your handbooks will be there, the quick start guides. There will be some training videos that will be coming out later, not right at go live, but will be soon after. And again, it's just kind of like brief little snippets of walking through a process. If you want to refer any of your DAs converting to or applying for FAs after that, they might be able to watch just like a quick 2-minute video that would be helpful. You know, there's lots of options. So those web pages are out there. And then again, I'm going to show you some of the things on that page. So continue to reference the adult use new web pages that are there for the FAQs. You've got the establishment guidelines. There's as Megan mentioned, out there right now on the new adult use page, the establishment forms that are needed are already there for you to reference. So if you haven't been out to the adult use web pages, I highly encourage it. The information, the FAQs are being updated often, as are the resources. So you're going to have all this out there available to you. And now with that, we are done with everything that we want to present. So at this point in time, we will stop for any remaining questions around anything we covered today, resources, next steps, anything in between.
We have a couple in the chat, Gina. Amy asked, can we keep the cultivation as MMJ and never switch over to adult use, but later down the road open another cultivation?
Yes, if you choose to, you can keep your current cultivation under medical, and then yes, down the road you would be able to add a cultivation under your establishment license. Just remember, if you keep it under the medical license, those employees need to continue having DA cards.
Great. And then Heather asked, does the cultivation have to be listed as medical and rec, or does it stay the same as before when you grow?
Can you repeat that, Megan? I'm sorry.
Yep. Does the cultivation have to be listed as medical and rec, or does it stay the same as before when you grow?
So as a dual licensee, there's no such thing as a dual license. It doesn't exist in the statute. Dual licensee is defined as you have both the medical dispensary registration certificate and you also have this establishment license under adult use. So each one of those, while you have to have a shared retail location for the two, each one still has the opportunity to have their off-site location. So you have to distinguish, you have to tell us which license you want those off-site locations to be under. It won't be under both of them. If you have one cultivation site, it's not going to be listed under both of your certificates. You're going to have to tell us which one to put it under. I hope that helps.
I don't see anything else in the chat right now.
Oh, I saw a few.
One just came in.
There's one above it. I see Kim. Thank you, Kim, for posting the address of where to drop off. But Mike asked the question, and we did talk about this, Mike, about we need to wait to drop off fingerprints. So I know that there was mention of, he says we need to wait to drop off the fingerprints as a question. At the call last week, we were told we could start sending them in right away. Megan, do you want to speak to that?
I did answer it in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you've submitted them since that call, we understand what I particularly said, and we will accept that. And then there's a question about ID cards. Will we be giving training on how to look at state licenses, I guess, driver's licenses and such? No, we don't have any trainings planned on that. I know, anyone that's been to a bar, that they do have scanners that you can use that will tell you whether or not the information it matches what's on the card and things like that. So those are things you can look into.
Great.
And it says, if we convert a medical cultivation site to an establishment, how long do we have to convert our employees from DAs to FAs? We encourage you to, I know everyone's excited and wants to submit that dual application, but we encourage you to wait until you're actually ready to operate as a dual licensee, meaning that you have your policies and procedures and everything in place, and because we are going to be able to approve those very quickly. So don't count on us taking a long time to approve those. You'll want to be able to follow the rules, which includes being open and operating as a dual licensee and selling to both adult use and dispensing to patients. The statute is very clear that your current DAs can continue working in an establishment as long as they have a facility agent application in. So they don't necessarily have to have it approved, but they have to have submitted a facility agent application. And then if we come out in an inspection, as long as they had their facility agent application in, they would be compliant and you would be compliant with the statute. Is there a better one to link to, or does it not matter with regards to cultivation? That's completely up to you. Like I said, there's kind of some considerations to do with the cards. If it's going to be in your medical license, those people are going to have to continue to have dispensary agent cards. If you have employees that are working at both the cultivation site and your facility, your retail facility, the retail, they have to have an FA card. So if they're both establishment, those people would only need FA cards aside from the POBM. So it's truly up to you. I think, those are business decisions. I can give you that information and what the differences are, but it's truly up to the business where they want those sites, which license they want them to be under.
Great. Oh, just got another one. So Catherine says we had our employees get fingerprints last week with the old verification form, and we are planning on dropping them off this Thursday when we come to Phoenix. We are 3 hours away. Will these be accepted?
Yes.
Great.
I think you guys mentioned something about the converting from nonprofit to for-profit. Is there's going to be some type of form or something to deal with? Is that correct?
More information will become available about that. Quite honestly, we've just been, I'm sure you guys are feeling it too, with the very tight turnaround time from when the initiative was voted on until these January 19th dates. So that's what we've been focused on, is just getting what we have to in order for January 19th, and then much more will be coming out after that, including information on how to notify us of that change.
Oh, okay. Another question. Once a license is given to us, how long do we have to open for adult use? 24 to 48 hours, question mark.
Again, once you're approved, once your application is approved to become a dual licensee, then you're expected to be following the rules for both medical and the ones that still apply for medical and the establishment. So be prepared to do that as soon as your license is approved. Since you're already approved to operate as a dispensary, if that's the case, then you're automatically approved to operate as an establishment. So there's no like secondary step there. It's all in one fell swoop. And then can a dual licensee split to medical and establishment in the future? No, you're getting that license because you currently have a dispensary. The statute is very clear that the retail and first of all, a dual licensee is one entity that has both a medical license and that adult use establishment license. And it's very clear that the retail locations must be at the same location. How long is the application expected to take for a dual licensee? It should be very quick for you to submit it. I mean, I think you saw it on there. It's a pretty quick process there. And as long as you have all the POBM attestations uploaded and completed and all of that, we don't expect that it's going to be very long before these are approved.
You guys mentioned something about if you're doing changes, if you're doing a board member change or adding board members or deleting board members, is that something that will be approved prior to submitting if somebody is waiting to submit for a dual license?
Yes, we do have some update forms that have been applied for, and yes, we're working on getting those approved now. So keep an eye on your portal in case, we're missing some signatures or something so that we can get those approved as quickly as possible.
Okay, those are all the questions in the chat right now. We still have a few minutes left. If there are any other questions, you can either unmute yourself or post something in the chat. And I'll just reiterate, we will be sharing this training, and the materials to support the steps that we covered will be posted somewhere between now and January 19th. We will be notifying you when your resources are out on the site. So you'll get that message from ADHS where you can link out to the portal and access your resources to help you through any steps that you need. All right, with that, I think we might be done for this morning. Thank you everyone for being here. Megan, thank you so much for all of your expertise and sharing, and Dan for your presentation. Appreciate it. We'll see you guys this afternoon if you choose to come back.
Thanks, everyone.